But if you allow yourself to do the Cain pattern long enough and build all the systems around you to its maximum capacity, then the dragon will come and get you. The dragon will come and it will bite off as much as it needs to bite off of you. And it's interesting because it's everywhere, it's harder to define the boundaries.
Right.
So welcome to the 4th episode. As usual, I recommend you to watch the previous videos because it's a lot clearer then. But I mean, I guess you don't have to. So this episode, we're gonna focus on the Tower of Babel. Last episode we covered what happens when you basically scale the Cain pattern, right? Externalization. It leads to a big flood. So the Tower of Babel comes right after the flood. It shows that the pattern of Cain doesn't disappear just because you reset the system, right? So if we look at the Bible, right? As usual, the pen ready. As stated right here, now the whole earth had one language and one speech, okay? So this is analogous to something like centralization, right? And it makes it even clearer when you follow more. You see right here, they had brick for stone and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is into the heavens. So they are building. What is a brick, right? A brick is a uniform mold, right? That is what a brick is. So you can imagine that they now build the city on uniformity. So this is the same pattern, right? Language, centralization, one language. Then you have the bricks, which is uniformity. And then you build a tower of uniformity. And what do they do with this building? Well, they aim to challenge the heavens, right? Up to the heavens. When you follow the text, which is extremely small, this text is so incredibly dense. It says right here, and the Lord said, indeed the people are one, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language. They have created so much uniformity that no longer what they propose will be withheld from them. And this means something like there's no contrast between them. The whole Tower of Babel is just one thing, right? And so what happens? Well, God came and confuses their language. And this, from a systemic lens, makes perfect sense. So God scrambled the language, the information. And so information could no longer exist. There's no differentiation. Like information at its fundamental level is differentiation. I mean, this is why we, for example, use computers, ones and zeros, right? This is the ultimate contrast, right? This is the ultimate differentiation. You just have one differentiation and then you just scale that up. This is the information era of the computers, of the transistor age. The Tower of Babel story seems to tell us when a system centralizes too much, then they ossify. Because so what does that even mean? Like what do you mean with ossify? A good example of information death. So you get the feel of what happens when the language gets confused, right? In a structure. It loses information. And so a good way to think about it could be something like, you know, when you step in a room and it has a different smell, you feel that smell distinctly, right? But when you have resided within that room for a little bit, that smell, that information that the conscious construct are, presenting to you, disappears. You become used to it. This is sensory adaptation. And why is that? Why does it disappear from the conscious construct? Well, it's because it's a Tower of Babel. So you can imagine that the only way for information to even exist is to feed on differences. Like, as stated before, a computer is made out of ones and zeros. This is the basic form of information. Information is contrast. And so when you're confusing the language, you basically become unable to have information. And this is the analogy to the smell example, right? Because when you walk into the room, you first are aware of the smell, and then you become used to it. Because your brain, your nervous system, your being, has limitation on the information in the room before you entered the room that smelled, right? So there is a differentiation. Your sensory system can't tell the difference between where you resided now and where you resided before. And so you can see how information is only allowed in the face of contrast. Another example is like, imagine that you are in like a blizzard or whatever, right? It's snow everywhere, the ground is white, the sky is white, everything is just white, right? I mean, you have plenty of photons, right? There's photons everywhere, but you're functionally blind because there's no contrast, right? You can't see the difference from the sky and the floor, or the ground, I guess. And so you're functionally blind. There's no information for the brain to make out. When everything is so uniform, then there's no ability for information to even reside within the structure. You must realize that reality is systems that are embedded within each other, let's say. Like they are embedded in a fractal way, let's say. So, for example, my being is dependent on the environment, and the environment is dependent on the earth, and the earth is dependent on the solar system and the sun, and all of this. So you see how systems sort of are embedded within each other, and if one chain sort of has a disturbance, that asymmetry sort of cascades downward. And so it's very important to listen to your environment where you reside, basically. Reality is a big, just breathing entity, right? If you can't tell what is going on in the environment, you basically become unable to react or dodge or change, right? You become less modular. And so what happens is that when a language is confused, right, there is no information to be gathered from the external realm. Just because you build your little bubble in reality doesn't mean you're linked off. You basically become a closed system, a closed self-referential system. And so you're no longer feeding on the asymmetry of reality, right? I mean, the energy comes from the sun and then it transforms, and then, different things happen. If you close yourself off from that loop, then your days are numbered. And so you can see basically how this is a structural thing, right? The Tower of Babel seems to be telling us a system insight of reality, because information can't exist in a medium that doesn't allow contrast to exist. I mean, in general, the Bible seems to be talking in fractals, right? Because this example, or this information death knowledge, let's say, can be applied to any scenario in reality generally. Let me try to explain it maybe another way. You have 0 Kelvin to, infinite Kelvin or whatever. This is the whole temperature gradient, let's say. 99% of the Kelvin scale, state space of water, is either full order, ice basically, or full chaos, gas. And this small tiny sliver between them, where they meet, that is what water is. That is the state of water. That is the phase change of water. Why life is supported in just this realm on the Goldilocks zone of let's say, water, right? Well, it's the only medium that can transmit differences or information. An example could be something like, if I have an ice block, right? If I have water in the state of ice, it's solid, right? If I take a small pebble, if I basically throw it on the ice, it just bounces back, right? It doesn't affect it. If I throw the pebble in gas, it doesn't even hit it, right? But if I take this pebble and I throw it in water, then you can see that the ripples record the event, right? So the medium of water allows for information to be transmitted. And so you can see that, okay, so we have discussed this part about how the Tower of Babel is information death. We have given some examples to show you the fractal nature of this knowledge. I mean, this is in general how it goes in the Bible, which is crazy beyond that, but whatever. Then we go into the story of Abraham, right? What Abraham did is that Abraham, in this story, serves as the first node that sort of restarts information, contrast, right? And how does he do this? So if we look in the Bible, it says right here in chapter 12, promise to Abraham. Now the Lord said to Abraham, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house. So basically God comes to Abraham and states that, okay, if you leave your house, if you leave your family, I will bless you, right? And think about what this means. Like, he lives in his house. I mean, the house is his family asset, right? This is a part of him. So for him to listen to God, he has to self-sacrifice. He has to leave everything he knows, right? This is a painful act. This is a painful act, okay? Because he can just keep living where there's certainty, in his house and with his family and whatever. But no, he listens to God, right? And in so doing, becoming blessed. And so why did God bless Abraham? The previous world, which was Enoch and Noah. These are the two equivalent of the two nations. He goes and basically digs a well, right? This is a symbol of him releasing the valve, as we talked about before, about self-organized criticality. How to maintain a persistent forest without these large events. You have to do self-sacrifices. You have to release the tension through a release valve. And this is exactly what Abraham seems to be doing, right? Instead of waiting for the flood, for the pressure to just build up until it becomes a big flood, he is blessed and he is able to find the well and release the water in a more controlled fashion. And so he literally prevents the system from going through the flood again, it seems. If you have a culture that points, no, we should point all in this way, we organize, because what we do when we organize in this efficient manner, we can create immense order and we will be prosperous. But the interesting part is that the people that go this path don't understand reality well. Because what happens is that when you orient your whole movement towards one point, you become extremely efficient of building, right? This is the Cain pattern. But what happens is that there comes a point where new information that is necessary in the future, let's say to dodge or whatever, for you to know what is going on in the future, you have to look at the external realm and you have to see what is going on. And you can't see if there is no contrast. If the culture only allows one way, one mode of being, then you're effectively starving the system from passing information through it. If you create a big ice block, a big Tower of Babel, a structure that is so uniform, because the crystal lattice or atomic lattice of ice is extremely uniform. All the atoms sit in perfect order, right? And they are forced into the state. When I throw the pebble, they cannot transmit the information through them. And if they can't transmit information, then they can't look out where the next dragon is gonna come. You sever its ability to feel things, to sense the information. The medium doesn't allow for contrast to exist. And so you can see that the water, there's no doubt why water is so central to life. It's because it's literally the medium state where information can be transmitted efficiently. So you can see how the fine-tuning problem could be dissembled a little bit in this way. And so the whole idea is that when you build a tower, which generally is always categorized as a centralization compared to the default state. This is why the Cain pattern are builders, right? There's plenty of mentions, the Cain pattern being builders. They are craftsmen, they are people of the field, right? If you allow yourself to be fooled by the promise of order, you focus all of your attention to one goal. You create uniformity, you create uniformity. If you take that to the maximum, then that uniformity will be your downfall. Because the system is no longer allowed. You sever the possibility of the system to transmit information through it. And then it can't update itself when the embedded system that it resides within changes as well. And so to summarize the event, right? You have the Tower of Babel. Abraham lived within this same structure. The language got confused. And information death. The system was ossifying. And the only way to restart information is to do the painful thing, right? It's to leave your home, it's to sacrifice and go and restart the system's ability to feel again. So yeah, I hope this makes sense, and I hope to see you next Sunday. And yeah, as usual, thanks for watching, and yeah, bye bye.